So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can take WordPress, Woocommerce, OceanWP and Elementor to create a great looking online e-commerce store in a quick and easy fashion. I'm going to show you how to install all the basic plugins, set up WordPress, install the theme, configure everything, and then end up customizing it to make it a little bit more interesting than just an out-of-the-box solution. So let's take a look at how we can do all of that right now. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to assume a certain level of knowledge when it comes to dealing with building this website. I'm going to assume that you're comfortable installing WordPress, how to deal with the server, and all those kinds of things. I've covered that in a previous video if you're not too sure how to do that, and I'll link that in the description below. So if you want to go right back to the basics, then you can jump in at that point and go right through the process. However, like I say, I'm going to assume a certain level of understanding based upon what this is going to cover. Also, I'd like to say that if you're considering purchasing any of the plugins that are used in this particular video and you'd like to help support the channel and what we do around here, please consider using the affiliate links in the description below. They cost you no more money, but it does give a certain percentage back to the channel to help support us. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at how we start. Now, I'm going to be developing this on a local server. So in other words, I'm not going to be using an online server, but the process is pretty much exactly the same. I've created the database, I've uploaded WordPress, and I'm now ready to start configuring everything. So all I'm going to do is refresh this page and we'll see the installer for WordPress pop up, and we're then ready to start putting the information in to get the ball rolling. So all I'm going to do is choose the language that I want to work with, which in this example is English UK. So I'm going to click on that, click on continue. That's going to then take us over to the second step where we can configure some of the basic information. So this is now going to need to have the database username and password and so on. So let's click on let's go. Now I'm going to put in the basic information. Like I say, this is all being done inside a local server on my local machine, so it's a little bit quicker. So I've named the database in this example eCommerce. The username is root. I have no password set up for this. And for security purposes, what I would always recommend you do, where you've got this table prefix, is just put some random letters and numbers in there. Don't use symbols and things because that can cause a bit of a problem. But just put something like this in there, just an example, because what this does is if your website is trying to get hacked, it makes it a little bit more difficult because the table prefix isn't the default WP. So it's good practice to do something like that. Click on submit. That'll now take us through and say, all right, we're all ready to go. Let's just run the installation and then we'll wrap up the last parts of dealing with WordPress. So I'll just pop some basic information in here. We'll put the name of the shop in there. I'll leave my username, put a password in. Now, obviously, you can use the password that WordPress automatically generates for you. That's a very secure password, or you can put something you want in yourself and also give you this sort of meter to say how secure they think your password is. Because I'm working on a local server, I'm not too bothered, so I'm just going to put something in. It just says it's a weak password. That's fine for me. Confirm the use of a weak password, and we'll just put an email address in there, and we'll just put just a random email address in there. Just so we've got something in there. Obviously, you're going to put your genuine email address in. I would recommend not checking this box at the bottom. We don't want to discourage the search engines from indexing the site. We want them to index our site and our content so we can get found by the search engines. So now we've done that basic information, we can just hit install WordPress. That will now finalize that and take us through to the next screen, which is where we can go through and we can specify we want to log in. So we say, let's log in. And we'll just put in our usual details. I'll put my password in there. Remember me, and we'll click login. And there we go. We're now taken through into the admin panel for WordPress. We can now go through and configure some of the other options that we need to get the ball rolling with WordPress itself before we start to move on and start adding in some of the plugins we want to work with. Okay, so now that we've gone through the basics of setting up WordPress, we're now into the dashboard, and you can see we've got some basic information, and the screen is laid out pretty simple. At the top, we've got this sort of welcome to WordPress wizard, which kind of says a few things that you can do to set up and finalize the entire process. Below that, we've got some different panels that we can go through, and we can customize these. We can drag and drop them around the area. And when you sort of install different plugins, then different options, different panels become available to you. And we'll deal with that in a moment. On the left-hand side, we've then got the basic navigation structure. We can go through any updates, we can go to the home of the dashboard, posts, media, pages, and so on. And again, once we start to install things like WooCommerce, we're going to get additional options available in this particular section as well. What we can do is, you can see we've got a couple of updates available. So if we jump over to that, we can take a look at what needs to be updated, and we can take a look if there's things we want to keep in here or get rid of. So at the moment, we've got this anti-spam Akismet. I don't really want that on here. I'm not going to use it, so I'm going to select that, and I can either update it, or what I can do is I can just simply come over to the plugins section and I can say install plugins. And from there, I can go through and I can update any plugins, or I can get rid of anything I don't want. So for this, I want to get rid of both of these, which are installed as default as part of WordPress. So we're going to select both of those, choose the bulk actions option, and we're just going to choose delete. We'll click OK to say we want to get rid of those, and they're now removed, so we don't need to have those in there. We'll take a look at adding some new plugins in a moment, but let's finalize the setup process. Let's go to the settings section, and you can see we've got a range of different options available in there. Let's go through these, and we'll jump into the general section first of all. So you can see we've got some basic information, and we can configure and tweak this to make sure it's laid out exactly as you want it to be. I don't want this tagline, so I'm simply going to delete that. You can see it's got the WordPress address and the site address. We've also got the email addresses associated with it, the option to allow people to register, and so on and so forth. We could even go through and choose things like date format and time format and what day the week starts on. So now I've made a change in there, I'll hit Save Changes. Next we'll jump onto the write-in section, and you can see we've got some options. We can go through, we can say what the default post category is. At the moment, we've only got uncategorized in there. But when we create posts, or when you create post categories, you can come in, you can tweak this to make sure it lands in the right relevant section when you create a new post. We'll leave that as is because this particular section isn't really relevant to what we're going to create. Next up, we'll come on to the read-in section. And you can see we've got some basic settings. Now, even though it said it's about reading, what we can do with this section is we can come in and we can specify what our blog post page is. And also we can either choose from the home page being our latest posts, which is automatically generated when new posts are added, or we can create a static page and associate that with our home page. Now, that's what we're going to do, but at the present, we haven't actually created any pages. So we'll come back to that a little later on. You can see again we've got some additional information below. You can tweak this, it's all pretty self-explanatory. You can set it up to the way you want. The discussion panel deals with everything to do with adding comments and things. So if you don't have anything to do with comments on your site, you can come in here and you can disable or enable in the options you think. But if you're not dealing with comments, most of this is fairly useless to you. The media option allows you to specify the different sizes that are associated with the media that you upload. In other words, the photographs and any video you may upload and so on. So this deals with the photographs or images you'd upload. You can see we've got thumbnail, medium size and large sizes. We've also got the option to organize our files. Now what this will do is if you leave this ticked, which it is by default, it'll create a folder based upon the year. It'll then create folders based upon the month, and every time something's uploaded, it'll drop it into the relevant folder. So for example, June of 2018, then you'd have a folder in there that would drop all the images if you uploaded anything during that month and that year. Up to you how you want to deal with this. It can be good or it can be bad depending upon how you want to structure your site. We'll leave that as is for now, as with all the settings for the medium, large and the thumbnail size. What we are interested in though is the permalinks. Now permalinks is basically the URL that is associated with any page or post on your site. Now this is important to make sure you get this right because this will have an effect upon your SEO, your search engine optimization, but also it has an impact that if you were sharing a link with someone, if you've got a link like this one for example, you can see which is quite long-winded, it's put the year, it's put the month, it's put the day, it's also put a name of the post, it all gets really convoluted and long. So what I would recommend you do is use the post name as a bare minimum. That gives you a much more streamlined URL to anything you post on there. But if you want to create a custom structure, you can do that as well. You can also see you've got optional for category based and tag based. We're not going to worry about those. We're just going to leave the post name to be the default setting for our permalinks and hit Save Changes. So once we've done that, we've done the basics of setting everything up. So let's just jump back to the dashboard. And what we can do on here now is we can get rid of this because we've pretty much done all the things I want to do. So let's just hit dismiss. Now just to go back over this dashboard, you can see we've got these different panels. It's up to you if you want to see these. You can minimize them by clicking the little arrow in the top right hand corner. But what you can do is jump over to the top right hand side and you'll see we've got the option that says screen options. In there we've got a series of tick boxes that relate to the different tabs or panels you can have displayed on your dashboard. So if you want to, you can easily get rid of these and have a completely clean dashboard, and you can take that back up out of the way. Now, each of the sections inside the dashboard for WordPress has this option. So for example, if we jump over to the pages section, you can see we've got screen options in there, and we've also then got different tick boxes that are associated with the pages. We've got one for posts, media, and so on. So you can customize the interface to a certain extent by using the screen options in the top right-hand corner of any of the panels inside the dashboard. Okay, so now that we've got WordPress set up and we've got it configured in its most basic fashion, let's go and add some of the plugins that we need to get our online shop up and running, ready to start putting products in and creating pages. So what we need to do is just simply come over to the plugins section and come down to add new. Once we do that, that'll take us over to the plugins dashboard. You can see it shows us some of the most popular plugins. We can filter things through on this so we can go through popular and recommended and so on. We can choose to upload a plugin if we've got something that's not available in the WordPress repository, so we can easily upload a plugin from there. What we are going to do is just come over and we're going to search for our first plugin, which in this example is going to be Woocommerce. That will then search through the database, find any plugins that match that particular keyword. And as you can see, we've got WooCommerce being the first option, and then a range of different add-ons and extras that we can associate with the WooCommerce plugin itself. We're going to leave those for now. What we're going to do is come over and say install now on the WooCommerce option. That'll download that to our copy of WordPress, and it'll then go through and ask us to activate that and go through any of the other options after we've activated it. Now, before we activate it, once it's already finished installing, we're going to add a few more plugins that we can then go in and activate all of them at the same time just to speed up the process. So the next one we want is Elementor. So we're going to let us search for that. And there we can see we've got Elementor Page Builder. Now the Elementor Page Builder is completely free. You can use this for absolutely no cost. It's a full-featured, great way of creating drag and drop pages so you can get really creative without needing to touch any underlying code. But on top of that, we're also going to install the commercial version of Elementor, or Elementor Pro as it's called. Now what that does is it builds on top of the free version and gives us some extra functions, some extra tools or widgets that we can really use to enhance our layout, and it works great alongside WooCommerce. So that's going to give us some more function, but like I say, that is something that is a commercial add-on. The link is in the description below, so if you want to check that out, I'd recommend going to take a look at the Elementor.com website where you can see exactly what's on offer. But for now, let's install the free version. So let's go through, same process. We'll just click on install. That'll go through and then ask us to activate it once it's downloaded a copy and put everything in place, ready to start working. So again, we're going to leave that deactivated for now. The next plugin we're going to look at is SEO Framework. Now this is a great way of adding in extra SEO or search engine optimization tools into your website. Now one of the most common ones you're going to come across is the Yoast SEO framework, which is a great plugin, but I have found that up until the current version, I haven't tested the latest version, it does tend to have a little bit of an impact upon the speed that your site loads. So the SEO framework I found just tends to be a little bit quicker and still gives us, or most users, the options they need to get great SEO options on their website. So let's just go and find that. So we want the SEO framework. Again, we'll let that load in and we'll install it from there. So there we go. There's the SEO framework. So we'll install that now. Again, let it go through the process of installing and we'll activate it a little later on. Then the final plugin we're going to take a look at is to enhance the security on our site. Now again, there are lots of different security-based plugins that improve the security of your WordPress website, and the one I prefer to use is iTheme Security. So we're going to search for that. And once that's installed, we'll activate that later on. So there's the basis of the plugins that we want. We now need to go through the slightly different process of adding in some of those commercial plugins that we don't have access to without sort of paying for them. So the process is pretty straightforward. We can upload the plugin from this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download a copy of Elementor Pro, and then we'll go through the process of uploading that to our system. Okay, so what we're going to do is click on Upload Plugin. That allows us to go through and choose the file from our computer. So I'm going to click on there and I'm going to access the Elementor Pro file. So we're going to click Open and then click Install Now. So that's going to upload that, go through the process of installing everything, and you can see it now takes us to the point of activating the plugin. So we return to the plugin installer, and let's just jump over to the Install Plugin section. Okay, so we've got all the plugins that we need We just now need to activate those we want to start working with. Now for this, I'm going to go through, first of all, activate Elementor, because you need to have that installed before you can start working with Elementor Pro. Next up, we're going to click on Activate Elementor Pro. That's going to go through and ask me to activate my license, which I'll do in a moment. Next up, we've got Woocommerce. So let's activate that, and then we can go through the process of setting that up before we come back and worry about anything else. So click on Activate. Once we've activated it, that's going to go through the wizard and allow us to put some basic information in to configure the basics of our store. Now, you don't need to do this at this point. You can come back and access any of the steps, or any of the options are all available to you still in the settings section. So you don't need to do this, but I would recommend it's probably a good way of doing it. So the first thing we need to do is go through and put where our store is going to be based. So I'm just going to put some information in here. So we just put my street, my city, and we just put some random numbers in there and letters in there. Okay, so we've put the information about where the store is located. Next up, we've got what currency you're going to be using. Mine's going to be in pound sterling, but all you need to do is go through and find the option that works for your particular store. We've then got the option to tell Woocommerce what type of products we intend to sell. So we've got the option to sell both physical and digital, or we can sell just digital or just physical. The reason it asks you this is basically because if you sell digital products, you don't need to worry about shipping and you don't need to worry about delivery addresses. However, if you're selling physical products, those options come into play. So we'll leave it to be selling both types of products, because then I can show you later on how we can deal with shipping. Next up, we've got a little option that says, do you want to allow Woocommerce to sort of gather data about what you do? We're going to say, no, we don't want that. Now, if you wanted to, you could click on Not Right Now. This will close the wizard down and take you back into WordPress itself, but we want to sort of go through the wizard. So we're going to click on Let's Go. Provided we put all the information in, that'll take us over now to the next step, which is choosing the payment option. So you can see we can choose Stripe, PayPal, PayPal Standard, or offline payments. And if we expand this out, you can see we've got a couple of different offline payment options. Obviously, choose the option that works for what you want to do. So for this example, I'm going to say I'm going to use PayPal Standard. And we'll just leave the email address as that. That's fine. It's not my real email address for it, but that's okay. And we're also going to say we're going to have cash on delivery. This just gives me the ability to go through and test things out without worrying about setting up a PayPal sandbox account to test if the payment process works, or use a PayPal live account. So I just use that for quick tests, and then I'll do a live test on the payment option that I'm actually going to physically be using. So next up, we're going to click on Continue. That'll take us through now to the next step, which is to deal with shipping. So you can see we've got the option for shipping zones. We've got flat rate, we've got free shipping. We can then go through and set up costs and so on. Locations not covered by your particular zone that you're setting up. We've also got then the option for the weight unit that's going to be used if you're using calculating shipping rates based upon the weight of an item, or you've got the dimensions where you could use the shipping to be based upon the actual physical dimensions of a product. That goes a bit beyond what we're going to cover in this video. So what we're going to do is we're going to set some basic parameters. We're going to say a flat rate of, for example, $4.95. That covers us for any of the purchases based upon the United Kingdom, because that's what we set at the first step where our store is located. And we're going to say anywhere else in the world is going to be $9.95. Again, we can really come into this and we can configure this in a little bit more detail later on down the line. But if you want to see about shipping, I've got a couple of videos that will take you through the basics, but also take you through some much more advanced ways of dealing with shipping. I'll link those in the description below. So if you want to check that out in more detail, more than we can go into in this particular video, I'd recommend checking those out. Okay, so we put the basics in there. Let's click Continue. Now, with any of these options, we can go in and we can configure and tweak these later on down the line. So we don't need to worry if we make a mistake. We can go back in and make changes later. Next thing we've got, do we want to install the storefront theme? Now, the storefront theme is a free theme that the developers at Woocommerce have put together that is based around working with a WooCommerce website. We're not going to use that. We're going to be using OceanWP as the theme. So I'm going to uncheck that to say I don't want to use that. You can see you also got the option for automated taxes. Now, this is a paid-for service. If you think this is something that you find useful for your store, then you can just enable that. For this example, we're going to leave both of those unchecked and click on Continue to go through the activation process. Now, the activation process is basically, do you want to connect this up to the Jetpack sort of suite of plugins? Now Jetpack is it's WordPress is sort of suite of advanced plugins for things like SEO, for things like linking things through to your social network accounts. There's a whole ton of things you can do there. Again, if you think this is something you think is useful, check it out beforehand. If you already know about Jetpack and you'd like to connect to it, just have your account details on hand, click connect to Jetpack, and then you can go through and connect that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to use that on my store. If you're looking on here and you're thinking, well, where do I go now? There's nothing else to continue without connecting to Jetpack. Right at the bottom, in grey on grey, you can see we've got skip this step. So we'll click on that. That goes through now and says, you're now ready. You've done all the basics. We're good to go. So what we can do now is we can say, do you want to get tips and so on about how to work with WooCommerce? Up to you. Drop your email address in there. Click yes, please. That'll sign you up and you'll start to get notifications and information from WooCommerce. Next up, we've got the option for next step to create our first product, or we can import products. Or we can just say return to the dashboard, or there's some more options for some guided tour videos and so on. I'm going to say return to dashboard because we'll take a look at dealing with products a little later on down the line. So click to return to the dashboard and you can see now we've got a couple of different options that have popped up to do with the fact we've installed this. Let's just get rid of those. You can also see we've now got some new panels available on our homepage. So these are now specific to WooCommerce. So if you are dealing with selling things online, then your dashboard is going to start to give you some information when you start to get orders. And it's a great way of sort of seeing exactly what's going on with your online store. So there's the basics. We've now configured the basic setup of WooCommerce. Now let's take a look at the next step, which is getting our Elementor Pro activated, going through and setting up some other options. So if you've purchased a copy of Elementor Pro, the thing you're going to have to do is activate your license. That's pretty easy. All you need to do is click the activate your license. That'll take you through and you can see we can now go through and put our code in there and then we can activate it. So I'm going to do that. I'll pause the video just to get out of the way so you can't see my access code. So let's take a look at doing that. Okay, so WooCommerce is now activated, so I've got the ability to start working with the Pro version. So we've got that done. The next on our list is to install the theme that we're going to use and any related plugins that come with that. So we're going to be using OceanWP. Now, OceanWP is a completely free theme, but what I'm also going to be using is some of the commercial add-ons that are part of the theme pack that allow you to get more out of the theme. Now, again, it's one of those things you don't need to use this. It's just going to make your life considerably easier if you really want to get in and customize the way that your store looks. So we're going to jump into OceanWP and we're going to go and grab that theme and install everything from there. So I've jumped over to OceanWP now and I'm ready to go and download the theme. So you can see we've got the option for download. We've also got a lot of other options on there, including the extensions that are associated with it. There's a range of free ones, which I recommend checking out because there's some really good ones in there. But also, like I say, there's commercial ones. So let's go and click on download. That's going to take us through and allow us to put our first name and our email address in there to go and grab a copy of OceanWP. So once you've done that, you'll get a link. You can download OceanWP and then you can upload that ready to start configuring the way your site looks. I've already gone through and done that, so I'm just going to upload my copy of OceanWP. Now, if you're using an FTP program, a file transfer protocol program, to upload your files to your hosting account, you'd see the same kind of structures we have here. This would be in the public HTML folder, and you'd have this structure, which is your WordPress structure. So what we're going to do is go through the process of just adding in the relevant files for our OceanWP installation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the WP content folder, open that up, and you can see we have the option there for languages, plugins, themes, and so on. We're going to come into the themes option and any themes that you currently have installed will be listed in there. So what we're going to do is we've got two things. The OceanWP theme itself is the theme. That contains all of the files that are associated with it. However, I'd always recommend putting a child theme into your site because it's much easier to make edits to the child theme files. And then if you later on down the line make some changes, they won't get overwritten with updates and so on. So this is the best way of working. So first of all, let's put OceanWP in there. So I've downloaded that. It's not the most current version, so we'll take a look at updating that in a moment. But all I need to do is just drag and drop the OceanWP folder into my themes folder. Now, like I say, this works exactly the same whether you're working on a local machine like I am, or whether you're using an FTP program and uploading files directly to your server. So there's the OceanWP folder. Next up, we're going to put the child theme in there. Like I say, this works in exactly the same way. So we're going to just drag that over. The links for all these will be in the description below, so you can just jump over and grab these yourself. So what you've got inside the child theme is if we open that up, we've just got a couple of simple files. We've got a functions.php file and a styles.css file. Now these are the two key files that are required for a child theme. So what this basically means is if we jump back over to the OceanWP folder, you can see there's a ton of folders in there and files and so on. All this makes up your particular theme. But what happens is when you activate the child theme, as long as the parent theme is in the same folder, then WordPress will look at that and go, okay, well, all the files that are inside the sort of parent theme will be used even though the child theme is selected. Now, this might sound a bit confusing. But what happens is if you make changes to the functions.php file or you want to add your own custom styles and CSS classes in, you can do that to those files inside the child folder. And that means that when you update the core, the master or the parent theme, nothing will be overwritten inside your child theme. Like I say, it might sound a little confusing, but I would always recommend, like I say, just work with a child theme. It just gives you more flexibility and less chance of causing problems later down the line if you make changes to the actual files to your theme itself. Okay, so we've done that. Next up, we've got a couple of plugins that I want to add, which is part of the OceanWP theme. So I'm going to just jump back out of this and we're going to go to the plugins folder. Again, this works exactly the same if you were working with a version on an FTP on a server. So what I want to do is just upload those files or those plugins that I want to use. The first one is the Ocean Elementor widgets, and what that does is it gives you some extra widgets inside Elementor that are specific to the OceanWP theme. Now this gives you the ability to customize the theme and do a lot more with it based upon using Elementor, so you don't need to know any shortcodes or code or anything else. So it's a great way of being able to work and customize your site's look. So we'll drag and drop that into there. Next up, I want to use the actual sharing option. So we've got Ocean Social Sharing, which allows us to share this via social networks like Facebook and Twitter and so on. Again, really, really useful little plugin. And finally, for now, I want to put the Ocean Product Sharing. This gives us some sharing options for the products and works really well with WooCommerce. So we've got all the different plugins or add-ons that we wanted. We've also uploaded the theme and the child theme. We now need to go back into WordPress and activate those before we can start working with them. Okay, we've jumped back into the dashboard now of WordPress. So what I want to do is just come over to the Appearance tab, choose Themes, and now we can go through and activate the theme. So you can see we've got the child theme and we've got the parent theme. Now at the moment we need to update the parent theme because it's a newer version than what I've uploaded. So I'm going to hit Update now, let that go through and update it. But we're going to activate the child theme. So once that's finished updating, we'll activate the child theme and then we'll start taking a look at what we can do. Okay, so let's activate that. That will now change the look of our site, tells us any plugins that need to be installed. So you can see we need to install the Ocean Extra plugin. This is a free plugin that just expands the way that Ocean works with your particular copy of WordPress. So let's just install that. So we'll say begin installing the plugin. So we'll install it. Once that's installed, we'll jump over to our plugins and we'll take a look at what else we need to activate. Okay, so that's done. So let's just jump over to our plugins, go to our install plugin section, and we'll activate those plugins and update anything that needs to be updated. So Ocean Elementor widgets, the sharing, that'll do. Once we've done that, we'll click at the top and we'll say update. We'll update that. And once they've finished updating, we'll just come in and we'll activate those. So we'll just select the plugins we want, come down and we'll just say activate. And that'll then give us some more options on the left-hand side. So you can see as we start to install more tools, more add-ons, more plugins and themes and so on, we start to get more options in the main navigation in our dashboard. So that's gone through. Everything is now set up and ready to go. So let's just open up a copy of our shop and take a look at what we're currently working with. Then we can start taking a look at how we want to customize the look of this to start to look the way we want. So this is what we're currently working with. Pretty vanilla looking copy. We've got nothing really going on. The layout is a little bit all over the shop. We've got no content in there. So let's take a look at start to customize this. Back in the dashboard, first thing we want to do is create a couple of key pages that we need. So let's just come to the pages section and we'll click on all pages so we can see what's currently installed. Now you'll take a look and we've got a couple of pages that we didn't create, the basket, checkout, my account and shop. Now these are automatically created when you go through the wizard creating a copy of WooCommerce on your site. So you don't need to go through the process of setting these up, it's done automatically. Then you can see we've got sample page. Now sample page, when you install WordPress, that's one of the pages that's automatically created. So I would recommend getting rid of that. So we'll just bin that. Now let's go through and create some of the pages that we want. So let's create add new. Now, we're not worried about putting any content into these. We're just realistically going to create the basic placeholders so we can then set up the structure, create the menus and so on, so we can start creating our store. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this homepage. We're going to come down and we're going to, well, let's just publish that. We'll just leave everything else for now. We'll come back and take a look at these options later. So we'll publish that page. We'll click to add a new page. This one we're going to call contact. Again, we'll click on publish. Add a new page. We'll have terms and conditions. Always good to have terms and conditions on your online shop so you can make sure you cover yourself. It's also very useful because you can specify that during the checkout process that the person that's purchasing items from you agrees with the terms and conditions. This is a good thing to make sure you cover yourself in the eventuality you may have a dispute further on down the line with the product or service you might provide. Okay, so we've created some of the basic pages. Next thing we're going to do is go through and set up our basic menu structure. So we're going to come down to appearance and we're going to come down to menus. Now in there we can go through and create our menus. So first thing we're going to do is call this one main menu. Click create menu. And then you can see down the left hand side we have a whole range of different options available. We've got pages, posts, custom links, categories, menu icon settings, WooCommerce endpoints. We've also got more options if we take a look up in the screen options at the top. So we can really come in and we can fine tune and create some really complex navigation should we need to with a whole range of different options. We've also got placement for our menu structure. So what I'm going to do is this is our main menu. So this is going to be the key navigation area. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in some key pages. Let's click on view all and we're going to go through and choose the ones that we want to put on there. We're going to say home. Now you're wondering why we choose home instead of homepage. This is one of WordPress's sort of endpoints. So it'll know that whatever page is set as the home page, that's what it'll display. So we'll set home. We'll put in checkout. We'll have contact. We'll also have shop. Now terms and conditions we'll put in the bottom menu later on. What we're going to do is we're going to click add to menu. Once we've done that, we've now created our basic menu structure. We're going to specify this is going to be the main menu. Now, this is something that's specific to the OceanWP theme, so you may find options about menu settings. This section by here is a little different if you choose a different theme. It should all be pretty self-explanatory, and if you're not too sure, check out the documentation that comes with the theme that you're using. It should tell you and explain exactly what's going on for creating menus. Okay, so we've got this option set up. It's not in the order that I want to work with, so I'm going to just reorder these by dragging and dropping them around. So we're going to say that we want our home, shop, checkout, and contact. If you wanted to, you can easily indent any of these and they suddenly become sort of sub-menus then, sub-menu items. So in other words, if you click to expand checkout, then you'd see contact underneath it. So this is a great way of being able to create more complex sites while not having menus that stretch on for miles. So to get rid of that, we just basically push that over to the left-hand side, removes the indent, now becomes a parent sort of menu item. Click on Save Menu, and we're done with the basics there. Next up, if you remember back to the beginning of the video, I said we can set up exactly what page we want to be as our home page. So let's go and do that now. We're going to come down to the reading section. Choose reading. And in there, we've got the option to say your home page displays. By default, it's your latest posts, but we want it to be a static page. So we're going to click on there. We're going to set the home page to be home page. That's now going to display the content that we put onto our home page ourselves. So when we go in and start creating our custom layout to show the things that we want on the home page, that's going to reference the right page when anyone clicks or views our website. So we click on Save Changes, and we've done the basics. So let's just jump back over now to my test shop, refresh that, and we should now see that we've got a slightly different layout. We've got rid of that area of text because that was going to show us the sample post that we had. We've got rid of that. Our navigation structure is displayed. We've also got some extra options in there. We've got our little sort of basket icon. We've also got a search icon. We can come in and fine tune all of this, and we'll take a look at that in the second half of this video. But let's go through now and set up some of the basics of working with our store itself. Now, the reason I've chosen OceanWP as our theme of choice is because it has a really advanced customizer. In other words, it gives us a really intuitive way of customizing tons of options for our theme to make sure that it looks the way we want it to. Beauty of this is the fact that even if you don't purchase any of the extra plugins, you still have a really fully featured theme to work with for absolutely zero cost. So let's just go to the appearance section. You can see you've got the option for customize. I'm going to click on there, and that'll take us into the WordPress customizer. Now, the WordPress Customizer is a way of going through and configuring your store and all the different options that your theme or WordPress allows you to sort of customize. So you can see what this does is on the left hand side we've got a whole range of menu options. We can click and you can see we've got options. We can come to other ones which have more options available. So for example, general options, we can click on there. We now have second level options. So we click, you can see we've got a whole range of options in there. We've also got in the main pane a visual representation of a page that we're working with. You can easily come in and change any of the pages you want to go somewhere else. So you can easily configure that so you can see exactly what's happening when you make a change. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through some of the basic options, things like the fonts, the color scheme that's going to be used, some of the layout options. And once we've done that, we're going to take a look then at how we can start to customize the different pages and the different page elements, like the footer area, for example, and maybe even the navigation. We're going to take a look at how we can create custom options there so we can make sure that our store stands out from the rest. It isn't just using some kind of cookie cutter theme that gives you half a dozen options that you then kind of stuck making it look like everybody else's. OceanWP with a couple of plugins really gives us a ton of options to create really customized looking websites. Okay, so let's get some of the basics out of the way so we can deal with the layout of our pages. Then we can jump over and start creating those pages in a more manual fashion. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the general options section. In there, we're going to come to the general settings. As you can see, we've got a whole range of different options that allow us to specify the default way that pages are displayed as part of our theme. Now, don't worry about this. You can override this on a page-by-page basis when you create those pages, but I like to set this up right the way at the beginning, so it means that I'm not having to go through and edit every page where I don't want things like the right column and things along those lines. So you can see we've got things like the layout style, the container width, and so on. All I'm really interested in at this point is to set this up to be full width with no columns on the left or right. So once I do that, you'll see the preview in the right hand side then displays exactly what I've chosen. We've got rid of some of the extra information on there. We now need to go through and configure some extra steps. So I don't really want this title bar at the top. I want to create a custom footer, and the navigation is okay at the moment. We can go in and change that if we want to. So let's just jump back out of this. You can see we've got a whole range of different options, things like page titles and so on. So if we come in there, you can see we've got the page title at the moment, homepage is showing up. What I can do is I can specify whether that's going to be visible on devices, the style, what tag it's going to use, padding, colors, and so on. What I'm going to do is going to come down. You can see we've got style. We can choose from centered, central, minimal, background image, and so on. But what I want is hidden. That's going to get rid of that and give me a nice clean blank page to start working with. Jump back out of this. We come down and choose the scroll to top option, and in there we can create our own customized scroll to the top of the page. This will appear in the bottom right hand corner when you specify. What it'll do is it'll basically mean that when you scroll down the page, instead of having to scroll all the way back up, you can simply click that little link in the bottom corner, and that'll then take you right back to the top of the page. It's one of those things when you're dealing with longer pages, it's a great way of giving some user interactivity and making things just a little bit more intuitive for the end user. So you can see we can choose from any kind of arrows that we want to use, the button size and so on. I'm going to keep this pretty simple. I'm just going to use this little arrow by here. I'm going to leave all the default colors for now. That's fine. We won't see it at the moment because we don't actually have any content on there, but we're going to say we're good with that. Jump back out of this. I'm now ready to just deal with some of the styling. So we're going to come into the general styling option, and you can see we've got the primary color, the hover cover, and so on. I don't want the blue color. What I'm going to do is click on there, and I'm going to put my own code in. Color that I've chosen, that's fine. I'm going to jump to the next one now to create the hover color, and what I'm going to do on there is set the same color again, but what I'm going to do is just drop this down to make it a little darker, so we've got a nice sort of subtle change when the mouse button hovers over things like buttons and so on. So good with that. Come down to the hover color down the bottom again and just set the color that I want in there. So we've created some of the basic options. Jump back out of this. Jump back out again, and what you can see is we've got the option for things like typography and homepage settings and so on. Let's just jump into typography and see what's available in there. You can see we can go through and we can specify a body font, we can go through and set up heading fonts and so on. For now, we'll leave that as is because the font that's being used is perfectly fine, but you can at any point come in and start to adjust this to make it look exactly how you want. What we're interested in is the header section, and that gives us the ability to customize the way this header section looks up here. So the logo on the left hand side, our navigation, and so on. So you can see this is broken down to various different sections. We go to general, you can see we can go through and choose the style of header that's going in there. So you can see we've got a whole range of options as well as custom header. Now custom header means that we could use something like Elementor to create our own custom layout, use some widgets that are part of the plugin that we purchased to go with the theme, the OceanWP theme. That gives us the ability to sort of drop in there the menu that's going to be used, gives us a real amount of control over what we want to do with this. I've got some dedicated videos to show you how to create this in more detail than I'm going to cover in this video, so I'd highly recommend checking those out. I'll drop the link to that in the description below, along with the one on how you create custom footers. But you'll see if we just choose any of these, say for example center, you'll see what happens is it gives us an update and shows us exactly what's going on. We then get options that are specific to that particular style of heading. Let's go for medium. And you can see that gives us a nice layout. We've got a search bar on the left hand side, our logo in the middle, and there's plenty of space then underneath that if we want to have a shop with a lot of different sections or categories or individual pages. So it gives us plenty of scope. Again, you can see we've got the option for things like bottom borders, which we can turn on and off. So if we want to just disable that, you can see the border disappears. We've got the bottom border color, so we can set that on there. So we've got a whole range of different options that we can work with. If we want to, we can come right the way down. You can see we can customize the color of the search form and so on. So let's go into there and just change that color from the blue to the green color that we've been using. So we've got consistency throughout our site. Okay, so you can see we've got the menu position, left, right, center, the height, and so on. I'm happy with the way that looks for now, so we'll leave that as is and just jump back out of that. You can see we've got things like header, media, logo, menu. If we come into there, you can see we can customize this. Got a whole range of different options for customizing our menu. At the moment, it's picking up the nice green color we've got, but if we want, we can come in and change those over as well. We can even control the type of effect that's actually displayed when the actual menu links are taken sort of your mouse over them. So you can see that we start to get different animation effects. And again, let's just go in, the link effects color, change that to the green color we're working with, and you'll see now that it immediately picks up that different color on there. So very easy to work with. We're going to put that back to no effect for now, but very easy to work with and customize using OceanWP. Okay, so I'm going to leave it at that for now. We're going to hit publish on this so we can sort of commit those changes that we've just made to the theme layout. We'll come back and tweak as we go along, as we see different things, but that's enough for now. What we're going to do now is going to jump over and start working on the actual home page and customizing the layout of that to fit in exactly how we want to display our products. Speaking of products, we need to either add some products or import some products that have previously been created, and that's what we're going to do. Again, if you're not familiar with Woocommerce and you want to find out how to create your own custom products, how to create products, add different options to them, I'd highly recommend checking out the videos that I've got on the channel that show you exactly how to do all of that in a huge amount of detail. For now, we're just simply going to import some products so we can start working with the layout as opposed to concentrating on creating a Woocommerce store. Okay, so if you'd like to follow along and use the demo data that we're going to use in this particular video for your products, just to save you the hassle of going through and adding a pile of products, the easiest way of doing that is just importing them. Now, when you install Woocommerce, it also installs some extra little bits and pieces that you can use. One of those is the actual demo data. The other thing is the ability to import your products in there. But what we need to do is activate that importer. So when we're in the dashboard of WordPress, if we come down to tools, we've got the option for import. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see we've got WooCommerce products and WooCommerce tax rates. We're going to run the importer for the products. So we're going to click on that. That's going to run the importer. It's going to say, right, we need to choose the file. Where's this file located? Well, let's click on choose file. Before we do, I'm just going to bring in the folder structure. So you can see this is your normal WordPress install. If you're on the FTP like we've seen in the previous video, this is exactly what you'll see in the public HTML folder. So if we go into the WP content folder, into plugins, and into WooCommerce, you'll see there's a folder in there called dummy data. If you open that up, there's a couple of files in there. There's a sample tax rate. If you're dealing with that, you want to import that option. We're not going to. What we're interested in is the dummy data. So you've got a CSV version and an XML file version. So what we're going to do is we're just going to load those in through the importer. So let's just close that down. Say choose the file. And what I'm going to do is go and find that file on my system. So I know that's in the C drive. I'm just going to come down and find that file. So now that I've located that on my computer, I'm just going to choose the CSV file and click on open. You can see it allows us to choose to update existing products if we already have some products added in there. I don't need to worry about that, so I'm just going to click on continue. There's advanced options should you need them, and you can see you can go through and you can specify some other information on there. But because we're dealing with an official product or official CSV file that's been shipped as part of WooCommerce, I don't need to worry too much about that. I can just click on continue. That's now going to go through and see we've got column mapping, which again, we're going to leave all that information as it is because it's all been laid out by the developers of WooCommerce. So everything should be in place, so we don't need to worry about that. Click on run the importer. That's going to go through now, and it's going to start importing those products. It's going to pull the files down from the internet, so we've got access to the images and things that are associated with the individual products. And once that's finished, we can then move on. Okay, so the import is now finished, and it's imported 28 products for us. If we want to, we can click on View Products, or we can just jump back over and start working. Let's click on View Products and take a look what's happened. So you can see now we've got a whole range of different products in there, some variable products, products on sale, just so we can see we've got some information in there that kind of covers all the bases that we're kind of going to work with when we deal with a WooCommerce store. Okay, so we've got some products in there. Now let's go and start creating our custom homepage. So let's go back to the dashboard. And in there now we're ready to start creating our customized homepage. Now we've created the basic page. We can now go through and start laying that out and populating it with some information to really get a nice looking page. So let's just go back to our pages. We're going to come down and we're going to choose our homepage. Once we've done that, we've got a pile of options available to us. Before we start editing the page and creating things with Elementor, let's scroll down and take a look at the OceanWP settings. Now you can see we've got a range of different tabs on the left hand side. You may see some different ones in here depending upon what plugins you may install as part of OceanWP. But you can see we can override things. So for example, the content layout, the sidebar, the margins and so on. We can override the basic information that's part of the default copy of OceanWP. So we get a huge amount of control over how we can lay our pages out and what is displayed and what's not displayed on an individual page by page basis should we need to. If we look at the page attributes on the right hand side, we've also got the option, because we're working with Elementor, to deal with the Elementor canvas, which basically means it gets rid of any header or footer and gives us a completely blank page. For this example, we're not going to worry too much about that, but if you're dealing with landing pages, especially if you want to focus on one product and drive sales to it, then that's a great way of working where you can create an entirely custom page from scratch without any of the other sort of theme options being displayed. Anyway, we'll leave that as is for now. We'll leave it on the default template. Content layout, we're just going to set that to be 100% full width. Once we've done that, we're just going to update the page. Then we're ready to start working with Elementor to create the actual page layout itself. Now, if you've never used Elementor, I'm not going to go into huge amounts of detail in this video on what each different component does. I've already covered Elementor in a lot more detail. Again, I'll link the description or the videos in the description below so you can check those out and really get a good idea of what you can do with Elementor. But fundamentally, Elementor is a visual page builder which allows us to create page layouts based upon rows and columns, and we can drag and drop individual widgets, for example, a graphic widget or an animation widget or a text box widget, into the various different cells, and we can create a really customized layout. It gives us a huge amount of flexibility, and linking that in with some of the widgets we can use with WooCommerce, it means we can create truly customized pages to display product information. So to access this, we're simply going to click on Edit with Elementor, and that's then going to replace our normal screen with the Elementor screen and allow us to start creating content. Now what it does is it gives us much the same kind of layout as we get with the customizer, but this time it's only going to be working with Elementor. So you can see we've got our header element, we've got our footer element, and then the area in the middle is completely customizable through using Elementor. So if we take a look on the left hand side, you can see you've got all of these different widgets on there. And if we scroll down, we've got a whole range of different widgets, or you can kind of think of them as individual little component elements that do a particular job. So for example, you've got things like testimonials and tabs and sort of social icons and so on. You can also scroll down, you can see you've got the various default WordPress widgets, which you can also pull in and start to use. Now the thing you're going to notice on here is if you're not using the Pro version of Elementor, then some of these options are not going to be available. So you can see they're sectioned up. So this is the Pro element. So all of these different widgets are only available as part of the Pro copy of Elementor. You can see we've also got theme elements which are specific to the OceanWP theme and the Elementor plugin that's part of the commercial option there. So you are going to get sort of a cut down experience if you're not using those. So I would highly recommend taking a look and checking those out. It really just gives you so much more control over your website. And if you're really committed to creating a great looking website, then these are the tools that are going to get you there much quicker and easier without breaking the bank. Okay, so let's start off by creating a nice call to action header right at the top that's going to grab the user's attention. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag over a heading, we're going to drag over some additional widgets, and then we're going to start styling them. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to drop in a divider, and finally we're going to come back and drop in a button. So we've got the basic elements there. Next thing we need to do is set everything up now so all the components, including the background image, are all displayed. So that's pretty easy. What we need to do is select the actual column or row itself. Once we've done that, we can go through and set some parameters for this. So we're going to set this to be stretched, so the background image is going to stretch out. We're going to leave the content width boxed because I want the content to stay inside the normal flow of the page, but I want the image in the background to expand right the way out. So next thing we need to do is go through to these styles, and what we're going to do is we're going to set a background image in there. So making sure we've got that selected, we can click on the background type, click on classic, and that allows us to put a background image in there. So we're going to click on there, choose the image we uploaded, insert the media, and you can see now the image is in there, but it kind of looks just a little bit weird. So what we need to do is specify a few more bits and pieces now just to make sure that it lays out the way we want. First thing we need to do is tell it how we want to position it. So we're going to say we want this to be center left. We're then going to come down to attachment. We're going to say that this is going to be scroll, so it's going to scroll with the page. So if we set it to fixed, we'd have that sort of parallax effect. For this example, I don't want that. Repeat, I don't want any repeat, so I'm going to say no repeat. And size, we're going to leave to be cover. Once we've done that, we're going to jump down to the background overlay option. In there, we're going to put an overlay over the top of this, so it means that the text and the button will stand out just that little bit better. To do that, all we need to do is choose the background type. We've got two options. We can choose a classic background type, or we can choose a gradient. For this example, we're going to keep it really simple and just choose a background color. So we're going to choose black on there. You can see that now puts a semi-transparent black overlay, and we can control that overlay effect by adjusting the opacity on this. So you can see if we take that to the left, the overlay becomes clearer. In other words, it becomes more transparent. If we take it to the right-hand side, it becomes more opaque, so we lose a lot of the background image. So we set that back to be 50 to start off with. If we need to tweak that, we can do that later on. So there's all the basic elements in there. We now need to start styling things. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to choose the different elements. Now, before we do that, we're going to make sure we've got this row selected, jump to the advanced section, uncheck this link values together, and we're going to add 150 pixels at the top and 150 pixels at the bottom. Now, this means that we've got a nice amount of space above and below the text and the button and so on in there. So it means that we can see more of the image and just have a little bit more space to let the entire sort of layout breathe. So once you've done that, let's just jump over and start editing and styling these different elements. So start off with a heading. Let's click on that. You can see now the context options on the left-hand side change. We're going to set this to be centered. Now I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. I'm not going to explain everything on there, but I just want to sort of go through and you can see what I'm kind of doing to get the effect that we want. Leave it as a H2 HTML tag, so we've got a heading 2 set on there. Jump over to the style option, check and set our text color to be white. We're going to enable typography, so it means we can go through and style the way the text looks. Choose a custom font family, and I'm going to use Montserrat for this because it's a nice heading. Set the weight to be around 600 pixels. Transform to be uppercase, so everything is capitalized. And what we're going to do is we're just going to increase the size on there until we get it roughly where we want it to be. So around about 75 looks pretty good. Now you'll notice that above this 75 we've got pixels, ems and rem. That allows us to choose the different kind of elements that we're going to use, or the different kind of settings you want to use, whether you want to use a pixel value, an em value or a rem value. You'll also notice we've got this little icon next to the size. If we click on there, we can set the size for your desktop, for your tablet and your mobile. Now once we've set everything up, we'll come back in and we'll tweak some of these things to make sure they look good on both a desktop, a tablet and also on a mobile. Very easy with Elementor, but for now we'll leave it, we'll just set up the basics. Next up, let's come to this line in the middle, and what we're going to do is tweak some of that. So we're going to set that to be 3 pixels, to be white, to match, so it matches in. We're going to set this to be a width of about 5%, set into that, so we've now got that styled. Again, we can adjust the gap on there if we want to, so we can tighten it up if we need to, or we can open it out and give us a bit more breathing space. Let's tighten things up on there so it goes like that. Okay, so next up we've got the click me button. We click on that. Again, we can set it to position where we want it to be. So you can change your alignment on there. We can change the click me and we'll put start shopping. The type, you can see we've got a couple of sort of predefined options in there. We're going to leave that for now. Set the size to be large. We're then going to come into the style option. You can see again we've got typography, so we can click on that and we can choose everything we want in there like we did previously. So again, we'll set this to be Montserrat. Making sure that the weight and everything all kind of complies. So we're going to set that to 600 as well. Transform this to be uppercase. Style is fine. You can see we've got things like line height and so on. We could even control the different sort of text based upon the hover state and so on. We're going to change the background color of the button, and we're going to set that to be the same green color as we used earlier. So we'll set that on there. So we've now got the right matching color. Border radius, we're going to set that to 0 because I don't want to have the sort of curved edges. What we're also going to do is we're going to give this a little bit of an animation effect. So there's some interaction with the element, so people know when they hover over it, something will happen. So we click on hover. What we're going to do in there is we're going to change that and we're going to set an animation in there. So we're going to set that to shrink. So what will happen is now it'll change color and shrink when you mouse over it. So that's a great way of setting up some kind of interactivity that shows the end user that something happens. Okay, so let's just change this now from being this as a heading element to super clothing store. Even though it's not just clothing on you, that'll be fine. We'll just leave it at that for now. So if we click on this little arrow on the left-hand side, that will shrink down the left-hand column and show us a visual display of what the page will look like without all the different Elementor elements. So it's a great way of just checking to make sure everything looks the way you expect. So we click on that. So you can see now we've got this nice sort of call to action section at the top with a start shopping button. Other than that, we've got nothing else on the page. So let's go through now and start adding in our custom WooCommerce layers for our homepage. So the aim of any online shop is to make it as easy and as intuitive as possible to get the end user to buy something. So the ability to create a custom shop layout is a really great way of being able to control what you want to display on your homepage and not just rely on the default settings that may be part of the theme that you're working with. So to do that, we can simply come back out to our widgets and we can go through and we can take a look at some of the pro elements. Now the pro elements give us some WooCommerce based options, things like products, add to cart, elements, categories and so on. Now that might seem pretty simple and not really giving us much in the way of options, but the reality is there's a lot more functionality hidden in there than you may think. So let's just say, for example, we choose the categories option or the products option. Let's just drag that in, drop it onto our page, and you can see we've got some information on there, and it shows us a representation of what we're kind of going to see. So you can see we've got things like the number of columns and the post count. Pretty self-explanatory. We can set that to be 3, for example, or we can set it to be 5. How we want to sort of do it. All very simple. So let's put that back to 4. We've also got the product count, so that allows us to limit the number of products that will be displayed in this section. So again, it gives us some basic control. Where the power really comes in is we start looking at the query option. So if we expand that out, you can see we can go through and we can filter out exactly what we want to display in this block. So we can use various different blocks together, but each one displaying different information. So for example, you may want to use product categories. So you can see any of the categories we currently have created as part of our store are all listed in there, and we don't need to type anything in. We can simply click in there and it'll go through and show us all the different options that are available. Same goes with the author. You can see that we can start typing in. If there's multiple authors, it'll go through and allow you to sort of filter it based on that. And the same goes for product tags. If you apply tags to a product, you can then use those to actually pull those out and display them via this method. We also have some extra options in the advanced section. So you can see we've got filter by, featured and sale. We can order by and a range of different options on how we want to order them. Again, we've got order again underneath that. And we can also exclude things. So we can exclude the current post or a manual selection. If we choose manual selection, you can see we can start typing in there and really sort of cut down what's displayed. For this example, let's keep it fairly straightforward and fairly simple. Let's just say we want this to be our featured product section. Well, that's really easy to do. You can see we've got filtered by, click on there and we can choose featured. Now you'll find that all our products disappear because we don't have anything featured just yet. So we'll save this out, we'll jump back and I'll show you how easy it is to set your products to be featured so they start to display in this section. So let's just save the page so we make sure we commit all the changes we've made. We close then out of Elementor and we're going to say go to the dashboard. Once we've done that, it takes us back to the page. We'll hit update to make sure that any changes we may have made have been committed. And then finally, we just jump back to the product section of WooCommerce. Click on all products. And you can see now we've got a list of all our products like we saw earlier on. So if you're wondering what this star option is as one of the columns, that's where we can specify a product is featured. And all you need to do to make it a featured product is simply click on it. So if we click on the first 4 products, we'll find that they will then update and we'll have the little star by the side of them, and that now sets those to be a featured product. So we just jump over to our test page and refresh that so we can see all the changes we've just made. We'll find we now have our 4 featured products listed on the page. Pretty cool. Now let's get in and make some changes to this. Let's just jump back into the admin section and start customizing this a little bit more. Just jump back onto our dashboard, and we're going to come back down to our pages and click on all pages to go back to our home page. Come back in and start editing that and click on edit with Elementor. That means we can go back in and start carrying on editing the page we've currently been working on. So you can see everything is back to where it was. If we scroll down, you're going to see there's some kind of little weird glitch that you kind of get when you're working with this particular widget and Elementor. It seems to double up what you're seeing on there. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but it's something to be aware of. It doesn't affect the actual page itself. You can see that even though it shows on there, when we just jump back over to our test page and refresh it, it's exactly as we laid it out. Okay, so there's the basics. So let's go through now and add some extra information, because at the moment the end user doesn't know what these products are. You know, he doesn't know that they're featured products, doesn't know if they're on sale products or what they are. So let's go in and style this a little bit more. Let's just come into this section. We'll click to add a new section above our featured items, and let's put some information in there. So let's just drop in a heading, and let's do the same as we did last time. Jump back and we'll just drop in a divider. So the aim of this is to make sure that everything has a consistency based upon the actual style that you've used on your site. So what we're going to do is we're just going to simply style these up to make sure that they're in keeping with everything else. So let's just click on this. Our heading is going to be Montserrat again, so we've got it selected. We can simply come into the style option and we can start styling the text. So again, we're going to set the typography, set the text color. This time we're going to go for this dark slate gray. We're going to make sure that we use Montserrat again as our heading. Our size, we can control that as well, so we can specify exactly what we want on this. Let's go for something like 32 pixels, so it's nice and bold. Set that to be the same weight. We'll set the transform to be uppercase, and if we want to, we can deal with things like the line height and so on, so we can adjust that. So we'll set that where we want it to be, jump back to this and set it to be centered. So there's the basics. Do the same now with our line. Click on that, set that to be centered. We're going to set the width to be 5%, so it matches that, the weight to be 3, and we'll set the gap. We'll just reduce that right the way down so we can kind of control everything. And while we're at it, we'll actually come into this and we'll reduce the amount of actual line height on there, so everything kind of butts up a little bit nice and neat. Okay, that looks pretty good. What we're going to do though is we're going to suddenly just change this and make it the same green as the rest of the sort of layout that we've got on them. So making sure we have that consistency throughout. Okay, let's add in a little bit extra space in there, so we can click on this, come to the advanced section, and what we can do is we can add some padding. So we'll unlink that, and we'll add something like 50 pixels of padding to the top and 50 pixels of padding to the bottom. Okay, so there's our sort of heading section. Now it tells it exactly what's going on. Actually, let's just make that a little bigger. Just come in and we'll just bump that up a little bit. 42, somewhere in there, and we'll change this to be featured products. Okay, so now the end user will see this and they'll know exactly what's going on. So we've now got our featured products there, so everything is all laid out where we want. Next thing we're going to do is let's put some sale items in there. Let's just choose items to be displayed that are specifically on sale. Well, we're going to duplicate a lot of this information, so do we really need to go through the whole process of doing it all over again? No, we can easily just duplicate things on the page, drag them and drop them around the page, so we can speed up the process. So let's just do exactly that. Let's just duplicate this entire section for our featured product. So all we're going to do is come over that, duplicate the section, that's duplicated that. We'll simply drag that down below our featured products, drop it in there, rename this on sale, or sale items. Okay, so everything is now set up. We'll do the same again on this. We'll just duplicate this one. So copy, duplicate that. We've got a duplicate. We can simply drag that down below our sale item section, click on the widget itself, and we now need to change the query to be from featured to sale items. So we've got our sale items in there, so we can hit save on the page. We now have, if we just jump back, take a look, refresh the page, we've now customized our home page to create this nice, simple, clean layout that shows both our featured items and our sale items. Very quick and easy, and a really great way of displaying products that you want on there. Okay, so there's the basics of our homepage created. Next thing we're going to do is go through and start editing and laying out the various different other pages on the site. So let's just jump back over to the admin section. We've finished with this page now, so we're going to simply click to close this down and say go to dashboard, making sure that you save this before you exit. We'll update the page just to make sure that everything is nice and neat and it's all saved, and then we're going to jump back to the appearance section and go into customize. Now this is going to allow us to go through and customize some of the other pages that are part of WooCommerce and part of the way they're laid out. Now if you want to get more detailed in this and you want to cover this in more sort of like depth and you want to go in and really create your own custom pages for the actual product display as opposed to the category display, you can't really do that out of the box with this particular theme, but you can do it with another plugin that you can purchase, which is Anywhere Elementor Pro. We'll be taking a look at that in more detail further on down the line. There's also the fact that Elementor Pro itself is due to be bringing out different sort of options that allow you to customize the WooCommerce shopping pages. So it's worth waiting to see what will happen there if you don't need it right now. But let's take a look at what we can do to customize those pages. Okay, so we're looking at our home page. If we click now to go through and take a look at a product page, we can start to customize that. So you can see the layout is pretty much the same. We've got the sort of navigation at the top with our footer at the bottom. We've got the sort of normal layout then that's part of this particular theme and the way it styles the actual product page. You can see we've got a list on the left hand side, which is a sort of sub-column. I want to customize this a little bit more. And to do that, we can come down to the WooCommerce section in the customizer. If we click on there, you can see we've got a range of different options. We've got general, menu, cart, archive, single, and advanced styling. So we take a look at general, for example, you can see we've got custom WooCommerce sidebar, display featured image, cart page, cross sells, and so on. So we can go in and we can start to customize things a little bit more. So let's just jump back out of this. And let's go to our single product page. This is the page that we're currently working on. And you can see this gives us a whole range of different ways we can customize this layout. At the moment, it's got the left-hand column set. We could choose between left and right if we wanted to. If you want dual columns, you can do that. If you don't want to have a column display, which is the way that I want it to be set up, you can just simply choose the full width option, and that will then completely get rid of it and give us a nice, simple, clean page layout. You can see that we've got various different things like related products and so on underneath, which is automatically populated as part of WooCommerce itself. You can manually go in and specify what products are associated with which product, so you can control this. Again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. You can do it if you want to. You've also then got the option to do things like choose what information is going to be displayed. So you can see we've got things like the title. If we click the little eye icon, that will then hide that. You can see that now gets rid of the title there at the top. Same goes with things like rating and excerpt and so on. So you can customize exactly what's going to be displayed. We've also then got the tabs position. So at the moment we've got description and reviews, and it's set to be centered. Well, we can set that to be left if we want to, or right. So we can control that a little bit. We've also got the option to control the upsells and the upsell columns, which is this section below. And the same goes with the related products. We can choose exactly what's displayed, the number of columns that are displayed, and so on. So you can easily tweak that to get a layout, get a number of columns and so on. That kind of works for what you're doing. So that gives us a pretty nice looking layout. The option to sort of display the image, different thumbnails and so on underneath. So we can just jump back out of that. We've then got advanced styling as an option, and here you can see we can control things like the on sale background, for example. So if we take a look at this product, you can see the on sale, the little tab in the top left hand corner. Well, we can change that. So let's set that to be something like a red symbol, kind of stands out just a little bit more. Same as the stars and same as different things like that, the grid hover color and so on. Well, let's change those now so they match in with the actual green color that we've been using throughout. So let's just choose the green color. So we've got that consistency throughout our layout. Now you're not going to see anything show up on here because they're not being referenced on this, but we are going to just change those a little bit quickly just to make sure everything sits nicely. Same goes to the price color. At the moment it's using a different green to what we are using, so let's just change that over so it all matches in. So you can see now it starts to style up the way we want it to be. Same goes with the hover color states, the same for the title and so on. So I'm just simply coming in and just changing where we've got this blue being referenced. I'm changing that to the green that we are using for the layout that we've got. Okay, so this takes a couple of seconds. Price color is same. We go down there. So this is all working with a single product now. So you can see we can come in and we can set different sort of settings for each of the different product categories, the different product views and so on. So we can really come in and fine tune how all of this is displayed to make sure it matches up exactly what you want with the store that you're creating. So again, like I say, it's all very simple, very intuitive. Just going through and setting these up. Just making sure that we've got everything in there the way it should be with the little symbols. Okay, now we do the same on there. That's all pretty good. So same, come down. So you can see we've got quite a few different ones to do on here. So I'm going to quickly pause the video, make those changes and come back to you. Okay, so I've gone through now. I've adjusted the colors to the way that I like them, and you can see everything is kind of looking a little bit more in keeping now. We've got all the styles looking pretty much the same. So we can scroll back up and we just jump back out of this, and you can see we've now got a really good looking page layout. So there's one thing that I'm not really too fussed on at the moment, and that's the little icon we've got for the shopping cart or the basket. At the moment it looks like a little handbag, which is not really in keeping with the type of product we've got displayed on the website. Well, I can change that. I can simply come to the menu cart, and you can see I've got a range of different options in there, and I can choose the cart icon that I want. If I want to create custom ones, I can create exactly what size I want it to be, to center it vertically. Whole range again of different options that we have available to us there. So let's just change that to something that's a little bit more in keeping. So let's say, for example, we want to use this icon or this icon or the basket icon. You can see it updates on the page there. Now sometimes you may notice a little kind of quirk with this, that when you jump over to your test site or your actual page itself, it shows the old icon. You simply just need to refresh your cache. It's basically just cache in that little icon. It is going to update and it is going to display. You just might need to refresh your browser first. Okay, so we're happy with all that. We're going to click on publish to commit all the changes that we've made. We've now created a more customized product page. So let's just take a little look at what we've done in action already. So let's just jump back over to our test site, refresh the page to make sure everything is done. So you can see if we scroll down, let's go and choose a product. So we'll say we want to take a look at this one. So we click on that. We've now go in and take a look at our product page layout. So you can see all the things we've just done have all been set up and configured in there. So everything is laid out and styled the way we've set it up to be. So we're looking pretty good so far. We've covered most of those bases to get our online shop up and running. We create our own custom homepage just to make sure everything is displayed the way we want. So let's take a look at dealing with some of those different pages now. We need to go through and make sure that we've got things like the checkout page and the cart page styled and laid out the way that we want them to be. So let's first of all just add a product to the basket, so we've got something in the basket to make sure we can see exactly what's going on. So we've now got that in the basket. Let's click on View Basket and take a look. So things are looking pretty good at this point. Everything is styled the way I want it to be. Let's now proceed to the checkout and make sure everything's looking good there as well. So let's jump over and you can see the checkout is all laid out nice and neat. All the styling is in place. All the colors that we've used are all fine, looking exactly the way we want it to. So those pages are looking pretty good. But you're going to find there's a couple of things that we haven't done yet. If we jump over to the shop page, for example, which is the default page, we've now got this sort of left-hand column that doesn't really relate to anything to do with the shop. So we can get rid of that in a moment. We also need to go through and specify exactly what information is going to be on the contact page, so we can do that as well in a moment. And we also need to finally deal with the footer area. So the eagle-eyed among you will probably notice as well that when we're looking at the shopping pages, other than the individual product page, that the Add to Basket button just looks a little bit strange. It's not really in keeping with everything else. Well, let's go and change that. The only thing with this is, and this is down to the OceanWP theme, is we need to go in and change that through using a little bit of custom CSS. To do that, we're just going to jump back with the customizer, jump back out of this, jump back to the sort of main section and come into the custom CSS JS section. In there, we can now start adding in custom CSS code and also custom JavaScript code if we want to. So things like your Google Analytics codes, for example, they can be dropped into there without the need to then go in and do anything or install any plugins. Then your code is added to every single page. So it's great this is on a theme level. It doesn't require anything else to be added in. So let's take a look at the CSS code we need to drop in there. And again, I'll put this in the description below. So if you want this information, you can easily just copy and paste it into your site and adjust the colors accordingly. It's very simple. So let's take a look at that now. Okay, so I've copied the code now for changing the buttons, and I'm just going to paste that in here. Okay, so let's take a look at what's going on with this. You can see the first part we have is the different selector that's going to be used to call up the particular piece of sort of code that's used for the buttons. Next up, we just got some basic stylings, the background color, the color of the text, any transformation to the text, padding and border and so on. Then underneath that, we've also got exactly the same, just this time for the hover effect. So all you need to do if you use this code is change this first number to be the number that you want to be the normal state of the button. In other words, nothing going over it. So what you can see there, the lighter green. The next one is just to change the second value and set that to be the darker value or the lighter value or the hover state value, whatever you want to use. So you can see when we mouse over, we get the slightly darker version of it. And that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Like I say, this will be available to you, so you can literally just copy and paste this in. Hopefully this is something updated in a future release of OceanWP, because it's one of those things, it's not difficult, but it is one of those areas that I don't really understand why it's not been updated and why we sort of still need to do this manually. Anyway, that's just a little personal gripe. Other than that, that's all we need to do. So let's click on publish on there and let's take a look at the front end of the site to make sure everything is working the way it should be. Just jump over, refresh this. You can see our buttons now take on the right kind of state that we want on this. That's all looking pretty good, looking pretty nice. Jump over to the home page, make sure things like on there, again, all the buttons are set up the way they should be, all displaying, all in keeping. So that's that piece done. So we've covered that, tick that off the list. Jump back over to the admin section now. Let's jump out of this and we're pretty much good to go on to the next step. Okay, I'm back in the dashboard now of WordPress and we're going to deal with the shop page, the shop home page. So let's jump over, take a look at the page I'm talking about. Click on there. We need to deal with this left-hand column. I don't want that to be part of my store. So we're going to come back to the dashboard. We're going to come into our pages section. I'm going to take a look in there and we've got shop as an option. So we're going to click on that. You can see now we can go through and we've got edit with Elementor. So if we want to create some more customized layouts for this, we could do if we wanted to. We don't need to. We're going to keep it as is. But what we are going to do is come down and set the content layout to be full width. So we're going to click on that, update the page. We'll just jump back over there and refresh the page and take a look. So there we go. We've now set that up so it's displaying just the products without that right-hand menu. So you've got a nice, left-hand menu. So you've got a nice, simple, clean-looking layout that looks great. Obviously, if we wanted to change the layout of this, we want to sort of increase or decrease the number of columns, we can do all of that very simply from within WooCommerce itself. For me, I'm happy with the 3-column layout. That's looking pretty good. Obviously, you've got the options then as default where you can go through the sorting options and the way things are laid out. All, again, really just installed as part of WooCommerce and OceanWP. So that all works pretty nice out of the box. So now let's move on to setting up and creating our customized footer. Now this is pretty easy. If we just jump back over to the dashboard, what we're going to do is we're going to come down to the theme panel. And in there, we're going to go to My Library. So I'm going to click in My Library. And as you can see, currently there's nothing in there. Now the library is basically templates that you can call up and use in various different parts of your site. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Add New. We're going to create our custom footer. So we're going to name that custom footer. We're going to go to the template section on the right hand side, and this is we're going to choose the Elementor canvas because what we want is a completely blank page, nothing on it at all. And choose that, scroll down, and what we're going to do is we're going to specify that we're going to disable any margins and we're going to set the content layout to be 100% full width. So we've now got control of exactly what's going on there, and we'll hit publish. So we've done that, we've created the basic holder, we now need to go into Elementor and start creating the actual layout itself. So let's just edit with Elementor. Once we've done that and it's loaded in, we can start creating the layout that we want. So you are only restricted by your imagination of what you want to achieve with this. For this example, we're going to keep it fairly straightforward. We're going to create a multi-column layout and we're going to put in some key information into it. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to come over and we're going to drop in some text, some information and so on. So let's just grab the text editor, bring that over, drop it in there. What we can do now is we can simply click on this top left-hand corner and we can now just add in 2 extra columns. So we've now got a simple 3-column layout. Now to start off with, I'm going to just duplicate the contents. We've got 3 text boxes, so I'm going to click, duplicate those, drag and drop them over to the relevant different columns. Okay, now you can put exactly what you want in here. For me, I'm just going to keep this really straightforward. And the kind of thing that I would do on most sort of e-commerce stores is sort of company address. And we'll just drop that down to the next line. And we're going to put something like useful pages. Again, drop that to the next line, and we'll put some about us information at this point. So about us. If I want now, I can obviously go in and I can style the different elements. So we'll set this to be, for example, we'll have that as heading 4 and the same on the other two. So let's just click on those to activate those. Heading 4, and finally heading 4 on company address as well. Okay, so we could leave it at that if we want to. We could do things like add in some extra widgets. So let's just say, for example, we wanted to have social media in there, where we could simply drag in some social icons in there, style those up, set them to what we want, the size and so on. So easily customize and tweak those to get them exactly as you want. Official color or custom colors. You know, you can do whatever you want with this. Let's just align those to be to the left so everything sits nice and neat, and we'll hit save. So there's our basic page created, or our basic footer created. Now if we just jump back over to the page and refresh it, you'll see that nothing has changed. The footer isn't being used. To do that, it's very easy. Let's come back out of this, go back to our dashboard, jump back over then and into our customizer. Once we're in the customizer, we're going to find the footer section. Once that loads in, and you can see we've got 2 footer blocks. If we scroll to the page and take a look, we've got the footer bottom, which is this section that has the copyright information in it, and we've got the footer widgets. Click on there. Now you can see it says enable footer widgets. If you uncheck that, it'll just completely remove that, even if you're not using widgets on there. So we say enable that. But what we're going to do is, you can see we've got visibility, fixed footer on, and so on. We'll say yes to fixed footer, because that means that no matter how tall the page is, the footer will always stick to the bottom of the page, which is just a good way of working. You can create a parallax footer effect if you want, which is quite cool. Again, entirely up to you. What we are going to do though is choose from this library. You can see at the moment it says choose a template created in theme panel my library, which is what we've just done. So we're going to click on there and choose custom footer, which is the name of the footer that we just created in there. So whatever you name it, if you create multiple different sort of templates inside the my library section, they'll all be listed in there. So once we click on that, you'll find that it'll refresh the page. If we take a look now, there's the 3-column layout that we just created, our custom footer. What we can do is we can come down and we can adjust the padding and the margins and so on. We can come in and choose the background color. So if you want to change that to a different color, we can easily do that. Text color, let's lighten that up a little bit so it stands out a bit better off the background. And you can see we've got links color and border colors and so on. Well, let's just change the links color again to be the same green as we've got everything else. So we have that consistency throughout our entire store. Let's just change that. So we now know that our links are going to be consistent. Now there's, again, one of those little quirks with this particular theme. You can see because we've created a custom footer, we don't have the styling done on these particular sections. Well, that's very easy to do. So let's again jump back at this and go back to the custom CSS section, and we can create our own custom CSS. So we can just come into this. We know it's in the footer, so we're going to put footer, and we're going to put H4, which is the H4 we chose, the header we chose, sorry. Open and close our brackets, and what we're going to do is we're going to set the color in there, and we'll just set it to be white. So you can see as soon as we do that, it immediately updates, and that's now put the information in there, and it's styled those the way that we want. So pretty easy, nothing too difficult on there. So that's our custom footer in place. You can also see that we've got the little scroll to top button that we created right back at the top of the video, because we now have more information on the page, so we can click and scroll up. Again, really, really easy to deal with. So we're pretty much on the home straight now. We've covered off most of the things that I wanted to show you. Going to hit publish on this to make sure our changes are saved and committed to the actual layout itself. What we need to do now is just go through and do a couple more little things. Jump back out of this, come back to our full listing so we can go and control exactly what's going on there. Now, one of the things that I really love about OceanWP is the ability to restrict what you actually search for. Because we're dealing with an online shop, I don't really want you to go and search for pages like the checkout page or the about page in terms and conditions. We can deal with that very easily. Come to the general options setting, and what we've got in there is general settings. If we scroll through, we'll find the search results page, and you can see the source is currently set to be all post types. Click on there, you can see we can tell it to restrict what's searched against. So in other words, we could say we only want it to search posts, pages, or in this instance, products. So you click on that, and now any searches that are carried out using the search bar, the search function as part of the website, will only search the products. I think that's a really cool little feature. Again, we'll hit publish to make sure that's saved on there. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump back out of this, close this down, And we're going to deal with setting up the custom menu that I want at the top that allows the end user to go into their account and things like that. So that's pretty easy to do. What we're going to do is we're going to come down to Appearance and Menus. Click on there. And once we've done that, we can now go through and start to customize this. We're going to create another custom menu. Now what we need to do is say, click on Create a New Menu and name this Account Menu. Create the menu. And what we need to do now is add in the relevant things that we need in there, the relevant links. We're going to use the WooCommerce endpoints. So you can click on there and you can see we've got a range of different endpoints on there. So things like orders, downloads, and so on. If you don't see this for any reason, just come to the screen options in the top right-hand corner and make sure that WooCommerce endpoints is checked, and that will then appear for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose the various different options on here. Forget the downloads because that's not really relevant. So we'll say add to menu. There's our menu structure. So we can lay this out any way we want. So we can say, well, we want addresses and account details first, then orders, then lost password, and finally log out. So that looks pretty good. Problem being is if we do it like this, we'll just have a pile of different icons or a pile of different links across the top, which isn't what we want. So we're going to come back to custom links. And we're going to get rid of the URL and then just put in the hash symbol. And we're going to put account. Okay, so once we've done that, we say add that to the menu. Take that up to the top, and we're going to indent all of these underneath the account menu. So what this is basically going to do is these are all going to be subsection of account. Then all we need to do is click on top bar and save the menu. Once we've done that, we've now created a custom menu that has address, account details, orders, lost password, and so on underneath the account menu. If we jump back onto our page and refresh this, you can see at the top now we have all those relevant links that we just created. So we click to go in to see that. Under addresses, you can see we now have all the information for addresses. Again, if we want to, any orders we've placed, they'll all be listed in there. So you've given the end user an easy way of finding out how to access their account information. For me, I don't really like that on the top left-hand side. So what we're going to do is jump back into this, come back into the customizer, and we'll specify we want that to be over the right-hand side. That's very easy to do. All we need to do is wait for the customizer to load in. Then we need to come over to the top bar section, click on there, and you can see we've got general, so we can enable it or disable it. Specify what devices is shown on if that's relevant, the colors and so on. So again, let's change that to make sure it's got the same green color as we've been working with. So jump back out of that. Content, you can see if we wanted to, if we want to create our own custom layout, we could do that there. Get rid of that. And social, we can go in and specify that. So we can disable the social if we want to and get rid of that completely. So all we need to do now is just jump onto the general section and specify that we want this menu to be over the right hand side. So you can see at the moment it says left content, right social. Click on that and we can say left social, right content. Once you do that, you'll see it'll just pop it over to the right hand side. Now, even though you can see it says place your content here, don't worry about that because that's disabled when you actually see the site. And if you don't like having that on there, you can simply come back at this, go to content, take out what's in there, and that there will get rid of it completely. So we'll publish that to make sure it's all saved out on there, and then we're pretty much good to go. So let's just jump back over, refresh the page, and there's our account details over on the top right hand corner. So we've now set up all those different fundamentals that an end user needs when they want to go shopping. They can buy their products, they can go through to the account section, they can view all that, they can go through and search for products, everything you kind of want. Final thing we need to do is just deal with the contact page just to finalize this store, then we're pretty much done. So let's just jump back over to the admin section, come back out of the customizer because we've finished with that for now. And what we're going to do is come back over to the pages section, go into all pages and come down to contact, and we can start editing and creating this page. So the first thing I want to do before I actually start creating the content is just simply come down to the content layout and set this to be full width. Once you've done that, we're going to click update just to make sure there's saved the changes. Then we're going to jump into edit with Elementor and start creating our contact page. Again, we're going to keep this really, really simple. First thing we're going to do is just drop in a map. So we're going to say we have a Google Maps in there, drop that in the top. Click on this, and what we're going to do is we're going to specify we want this to be full width like we did before. So we say full width. We don't want the content to be boxed this time, we want this to be full width. So you can see that now gives us a nice full width map. Column gap, you know, we can kind of control all this kind of stuff if we want to. If we had multiple columns, we don't, so we don't need to worry about that. What we are going to do is just click for this column, jump into the advanced section and set any padding to be 0 on there, so it gives us a nice full width. Finally, what we can do is we can come into this and we'll leave it to the London one, that's fine. We'll just set the zoom level to be 14, so we're a little bit closer to what we're doing, and we'll set the height to be 500. So it's kind of a nice full width map on this, so they can see exactly when they land on this how to contact us. Okay, so next up, how to find us, I should say. Next up, let's go in and we're going to choose a form. Now, the forms option inside Elementor Pro really do give you a lot of options. So let's just start by setting up some of the basic parameters we want to make sure this all sits in style-wise with the actual content we're putting together. So let's click on the actual element and go through and see what we can do. So you can see we've got a couple of simple form elements. We've got name, email, and message. If we want to add more in there, we can do. So let's just say, for example, we want to put a phone number in. We can click, expand that out, and we can just change that to whatever we want. So text is fine, and we'll say telephone, placeholder, telephone again. You can see we can specify whether it's a required field or not. We can also reorder these to make sure that everything sits exactly as we want it to. So let's just say, for example, we wanted to have the email address and the telephone number side by side. Well, that's easy to do. Expand that out, set it to be 50%. Same with the telephone option, set that to be 50%. And you can see it automatically then positions itself as you want. So that's pretty cool, very easy to deal with. Input size we can specify on there, so we'll adjust that to be large. We'll take off the labels. I don't really want those on there. I want to keep it simple and clean. Submit button. You can see at the moment that's sort of full width, and we can specify again, make sure exactly how it's styled on there. We're going to come over and we're going to say go to the style section, come onto the button, and you can see we can come into that and we can do the same as we've done before, so we can set up some simple typography on there. So let's just say we want that to be Montserrat as well. There we go, and we'll say we want that to be 600 and we want it to be uppercase again. So you can see it's just very, very easy to deal with. We've got the text color, which is fine. We'll set that to white to make sure it's all styled as we want, and we've got the background color. We can come into that, and again we can do what we've done previously, which is set the relevant color in there so everything is consistent. Final thing we need to do once we set the color on there is to get rid of that border radius, because we don't have that on the other ones. So that squares that off nice and neat and tidy. If we want to, we can choose the typography as well, so we can easily style that. What I am going to do though is I'm going to come to the field element. Text color is fine, I'm going to leave that as it is. But the border color, I'm just going to lighten that up a little bit so it's just a little bit easier to see, sort of hide away as it were. Sort of streamlines things and just make the text color just a little darker so that kind of stands out nicely. Okay, so there's the basic elements put together in there. The next thing you need to do is specify how the form actually works. So when you do, come back to content and you can see we've got some options. So we've got submit button, which we can control that information there. We can also do what to do after you submit something. So you can see at the moment it says the action is to send an email. You can do more than that. You can set this and link it up through to things like MailChimp and Webhook and Drip and so on. So if you were doing this as a sort of sign-up form, you can easily link that through to the relevant sort of system that you're working with. For now, we're going to leave that as the email. Next up, we expand the email option. You can see that now gives us the ability to choose what happens, who gets the email, what email subject, what fields are transferred over, and so on and so forth. So you can see we can add in multiple different emails. All we need to do is just separate them with a comma. So this is the two. In other words, who's the recipient for the email? Next up, we've got the email subject, so we can put in whatever we want from there. The from email, we can have that to be sort of like the from email account, which is generally going to be the same as your sort of to email. Next up, we've got the from name, so you can set that to be whatever you want, your shop name, for example. Then we've got the reply to. Now this is the thing that you need to be careful of. By default, this is set to be the same as your from email and your to email. What you realistically want to do with a form like this is change that over to be the email field. So whatever email address is included in the email field, in other words, the person that sends it to you from your shop, that's who your reply to would be. Again, you can CC and BCC this. So if you wanted to send a copy of any emails you send back from, or you get from your store to someone else, you want to CC them in or BCC them in, you can do that. And again, you can set that to multiple different recipients just by separating things with a comma. Then we've got the metadata. Now the metadata is fundamentally what information sits underneath the information that the user that actually sends the form to you it's included. So for example, the date that it was sent, the time, the page URL, the user agent, in other words, was it sent through from Firefox or from sort of Chrome or something, the remote IP, and a credit to Elementor. You can take out anything you think is not particularly relevant. So for example, you may only want to include the date and time. Well, you can do that. You can also specify whether the email that's sent is going to be HTML or plain. Then finally, you've got the additional options. And again, these are things you don't really need to worry about. If you want to set up custom messages, for example, so when the form is sent, what happens? Well, you can set custom messages and so on in there. So that's the basics of creating your form. We've now created the form, added that in there, so you've now got an ability for people to contact us. So the final thing I want to do is just make this a little bit more intuitive to kind of be a bit more in line with the rest of the site that we developed. So to do that, we're just going to come in and we're just going to create a new column. So to add a new section in there. We're going to drop a heading in there, and finally we're going to come back to the widgets and we're going to drop a divider in there. Okay, so now we're going to style these up to the same as the previous ones. Now obviously we could have saved those out as a template and called those back up, and that would speed up the process, and I've covered that in its own dedicated video. So if you want to take a look at that, check out the Elementor playlist. There's a ton of different videos on there that will show you how to really get the best out of Elementor and Elementor Pro. But for now, let's just keep this really easy. Let's just add in, first of all, a little bit of padding in there. So we'll click on there, add in 50 pixels padding top and bottom, like we did previously. Okay, so that gives us some nice spacing on there. We're going to click on the heading, set that to be centered. Heading 2 is fine. What we're going to do is go through and start styling that. So before we do, say contact us, style, I'm going to come into that. Choose that sort of dark grey header. Typography, yep, we want to use that. We're going to come in and we're going to say we want this to be Montserrat again. Weight 600, transform uppercase, and what we're going to do is just bump the size of that up so it's nice and neat. But 42, I think, was what we did the last time. Next up, we're just going to come into the little line, set that to be 3, change the color to our green color. And then we're going to set that to be centered, reduce the gap down because we don't want to deal with that, and set that to be 10%. Or was it 5? 10's fine for this one. Okay, so we'll hit save on that, and that's our contact page done. We've got a map to show where our store is located, and we've got a nice simple contact section that allows people to contact us should they want to, and request more information, contact us about products, and so on and so forth. So let's just jump over to our test page now and take a look at what this page looks like on screen. So let's just jump over, and as you can see, everything's looking pretty good except for this large gap at the top here. Now that's pretty easy to fix. All we need to do is jump out of this and go back to the dashboard. That'll take us back to our page. At the moment, it's because we've got the margins enabled. So what we're going to do is disable those, update our page, and that'll remove the default margins that OceanWP sets at the top and the bottom of your page. So refresh that. That then gets rid of that space there, but it means that we've now got to fix the alternative underneath. So come back into this, edit with Elementor, and all we're going to do is just add a little bit of extra space in, a little bit of extra padding at the bottom of our contact form. Come back into this, and we'll just drop in there, and we say at the bottom we're going to add 50 pixels of padding at the bottom. Save that, jump back over and take a look. And there's our spacing, drop back in there, and our map and everything is all looking nice and neat and tidy. So there's our shop pretty much put together. We've got our home page, our shop page, our checkout sections all done, our contact page is created, we've got our basket all set up nice and neat and tidy. We've gone through, created some custom pages, some custom layouts, all looking pretty good. There's one final thing we need to do before we wrap this video up, and that is making sure that it all looks good on smaller devices. So let's just jump back in. And what we're going to do is we're going to come out of this page, we're going to go to our home page, and I'll show you how you can do it on the home page. And the principle then for every other page is pretty much exactly the same. Jump back to our pages, open up our home page. What we're going to do is edit with Elementor. Once we've done that, we're going to then switch it over to look in tablet view and in mobile view. So at the moment, we're looking at desktop. If we come at the bottom of this grey bar, you can see we've got responsive mode. If I click on there, it allows me now to switch between tablet, mobile, and desktop. So let's switch over to tablet and take a look in there. So we click on that, and you can see it looks okay, but there's some things we might want to fine tune. Like I say, you've got this strange sort of duplication of information as part of the preview, but that's an Elementor thing, so don't worry too much about that. So everything is looking okay, other than, like I say, the fact that, well, That's looking a little bit weird, it's a little bit too big. So we can now fine tune and tweak things based upon the device that we're looking at. So if we click on this particular section, go to the Advanced tab, you can see it's already picked up the fact that we're dealing with a mobile or a desktop, sorry, a tablet view. So what we can do is we can fine tune things. Let's unlink those. And at the moment it's set to 0 padding. So let's just change that now to be, let's just go for something like 15 pixels top, 15 pixels bottom. So by doing that, we've taken away some of the excess space that wasn't required and can take up a huge amount of real estate on a tablet or a mobile view. But what we can also do is just change the size of the text to make that a little smaller, a little sort of less in your face. So click to edit that element. What we're going to do is come up to Style, Typography is selected, and you can see we're now looking at the tablet view. So what we can do is just use the size option. So we can adjust this to get where we want. So we're going to go for something like this so we can keep it on sort of 2 lines. That looks a bit better. Now if we like the look of that and we want to check it out now on a smaller screen, we can simply come down again, click and choose mobile. So you can see now we're getting the same thing. We've got the text is becoming a little bit truncated, so we need to deal with that. So making sure we've got that element selected, you can see it's automatically picked up the fact we're on a mobile view. So we can now adjust that to make sure that everything sits nice and neat and tidy. Again, if we want to make changes to the actual sort of button, we can do that. Now we want to make sure that the subheadings, which are a little bit big, are sort of also shrunk down a little bit. So we can do that very easily. Same again, come to the style, adjust that to make sure everything sits nice and neat and tidy. Again, let's just jump down to the next subheading and do the same there again. So click on that, style, adjust the sizing to make sure it sits exactly as you want. So all very easy. You just need to go through the different various elements and adjust them based upon their values on the different devices you're looking at. So if we switch this back to being a desktop, you can see it's all gone back to looking exactly the same as it did. Text is the size we set originally. Jump to tablet, it adjusts things again to make sure it looks good on a tablet view. And finally, in mobile view, same again. You can see it's now everything is laid out the way we want. The menus change over to the relevant sort of mobile menus and so on. So it's very easy to go through with Elementor and Elementor Pro to go through and fine tune to make sure everything looks great on mobile devices. So that now ticks off the whole sort of development and design side of working with setting up your shop. Final couple of things we want to do is go through and make sure we've got our payment gateway set up and configured to start working with and taking payments. So let's just save this to make sure all those changes we just made are saved out. Going to come back out of this then and go back to our dashboard. Update our page to make sure everything is looking good and saved. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come over to WooCommerce and we're going to come down to settings. Now obviously this is dependent again upon the particular sort of payment gateway you're looking at. What we've done is we've used PayPal, so that's very easy to deal with. All we need to do is come into checkout, and in there you can see all the different checkout options are listed. We chose PayPal, so we're going to click on that. So that now takes us into the PayPal area, and all you need to do is input the PayPal email address that you've got set up associated with your PayPal account, save this out, and you're pretty much good to go. You are pretty much done. Well, that's what I wanted to show you. We've gone through and created, installed, and set up everything to create our own custom e-commerce WooCommerce website. We've used WordPress, we've used WooCommerce, Elementor Pro, and OceanWP to create a fully fledged working e-commerce website. There's so much more I could show you on how to deal with this and so many more options we could take a look at, but this is going to get you up to speed with creating a great looking, clean layout, easily capable of helping you create an online store and selling products quickly and easily. Well, I hope you found the video useful. If you did, please hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and hit the bell icon to be notified of every new video we upload every single week. If you'd like to support this channel, please consider using those affiliate links in the description below. Like I said at the top of the video, it costs you no more money, but it does give a small percentage back to the channel and help support what we do around here. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback on this video, or anything else you'd like to see covered in future videos, please pop those in the comment section below. And until next time, take care.